So the miser. All right, so a miser sold all that he had and bought a lump of gold, which he buried in a hole in the ground by the side of an old wall and went to look at daily. One of his workmen observed his frequent visits to the spot and decided to watch his movements. He soon discovered the secret of the hidden treasure and, digging down, came to the lump of gold and stole it. The miser, on his next visit, found the hole empty and began to tear his hair and to make loud lamentations. A neighbor, seeing him overcome with grief and learning the cause, said, "Pray, do not grieve so, but go and take a stone and place it in the hole, and fancy that the gold is still lying there. It will do you quite the same service, for when the gold was there, you had it not, as you did not make the slightest use of it." Okay, so the miser. So you guys might know a miser is like someone who's like a cheapskate, just likes to hoard things, doesn't like to spend money. It's very much a disparaging remark. Saving money can be considered a big positive, but when someone calls someone a miser, they're being extremely negative and you know sort of crass. Um, so yeah, I mean it's definitely a contemptuous, negative, judgmental word. So a miser sold all that he bought. A miser sold all that he had and bought a lump of gold, which he buried in a hole in the ground by the side of an old wall and went to look at it daily. Okay, so he's like, got this gold that he's just going to look at daily, so he's not like spreading it out in his community. As far as like, setting up orphanages or like he just basically helping. Like, not that people should dictate what others should do with their hard-earned money. I'm not trying to talk politics here, but I'm just saying that Aesop is making it perfectly clear, thousands of years ago, um, that this is somebody who is a hoarder, who they get these valuable objects and then they hoard it. But also the fact that he's looking at it every day, it also shows that like he really values his material possessions, even material possessions that don't have utility. You know, um, you know, uh, I'm pretty, I would guess that most people who own gold and silver, or even like a painting or something, fancy that they're trying to collect, they're not looking at that every single day, you know. So this guy, Aesop's trying to paint the picture of like that this guy is really a hoarder and really just cares about his stuff, even his stuff that is not, being utilized by either himself or his loved ones or his community at large, etc., etc. So, one of his, at least that's what I took from this first sentence. One of his workmen observed his frequent visits to the spot and decided to watch his movements. He soon discovered the secret of the hidden treasure, and digging down, came to the lump of gold, and he stole it. Okay, so one of his workmen stole the gold. There's a lot of implications here. Maybe the guy doesn't pay him that much. But you have to infer all of that. That's just something that the reader is going to have to manufacture, like completely manufacture, because you don't know why he stole it. He could have been well paid, and maybe he was greedy. But as of that sentence, we don't know. We just know that he was sniffing around him, and then he found the gold and stole it. The miser, on his next visit, found the hole empty and began to tear his hair out and to make loud lamentations. So, sort of implies, uh, Aesop is sort of, I think, making a slight judgment here in the sense of that he's like flipping out and invectives and expletives. He's just spouting off, um, lamentations, loud lamentations, which is it's pretty alliterative phrase there, the L's. But he began to tear his hair. So just imagine, you've got one lump of gold. It's not like you've got you know the Ducktales, Scrooge McDuck, like swimming in his gold coins. This is like one lump of gold. So he's like staring at it. He's pulling his hair out. Like, just picture if this is really happening. It's like, wow. So there's definitely Aesop is like setting the stage for this type of character, and he even calls it the miser. He calls the story the miser. Which is basically the speaker or the narrator, um, which here is the same as the writer, the author. I believe that can be argued um, relatively well. That that this guy's just really overreacting when it comes to the way he owns this piece of quote unquote um, property, this quote unquote asset. Um, so a neighbor, seeing him overcome with grief and learning the cause, said, "Pray, do not grieve so, but go and take a stone and place it in the hole, and fancy that the gold is still lying there. It will do you quite the same service, which is again sort of alliterative, SSS, or the same service. For when the gold was there, you had it not, as you did not make the slightest use of it." So, um, yeah, I mean, this is definitely a clear sort of condemnation, or at least a rebuke, or a snarky wink at at this miserly main character of this story, this fable, uh, by the author. So yeah, the neighbor just comes out and says, "Look, just put a rock down there. You don't even use it. You don't even use the gold anyways. When you had it, you just and it's true. He just went out and looked at it every day. He didn't really do anything. He didn't really help in any way, either himself or his community. Um, so it wasn't even like it was useful either. It wasn't even like even maybe if he had bought a plow, or if he had bought a piece of land that he could have chickens on and cows, and he'd have a bunch of milk, and he'd have eggs and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things. He could have hired people and had this farm running and had a bunch of people working for him and give him opportunities. I mean, there are a lot of other ways, to take your resources and to be able to sort of, you know, um, have, to be able to have production, or a utility in, with regards to these resources. Um, even investing in businesses. But I mean, there's just a host of things that you can do, obviously. But this is clearly, um, a knock on this miser, and it's called the miser. So, you know, the last word was the neighbor. Why don't you just put the rock down there? It's not going to matter anyways. You don't even use the gold when you had it. Doesn't even matter. Just put the rock, hide it, go along your day and pretend you have a thing of gold down there. So basically, saying, look, if you've got resources, to try to help, at least it doesn't say help your family, help your community, help society at large, but it's talking more about the explicit wording in this 4-line story is use, the slightest use of it. So it might even just be buying a plow and like being able to till the soil, and it might not be strictly like, oh, you have to be philanthropic or you have to be altruistic with your money or your resources. It might just be, well, at least if you bought a car, you'd have well, this is thousands of years ago, but maybe the Fred Flintstone car where you had to run. But yeah, like a camel or a horse, or a piece of transportation back then. Um, an animal that you could take care of. You could pay someone, and buy it, or you could like barter, and then you could use it. And continually use you know that that creature to transport goods, to transport people, to transport letters. I mean, who knows? But yeah, so I think this is a pretty interesting story. And it's sort of a good reminder, you know, that you should not hoard and you should not hoard and love your hoard so much that you can't see straight. I mean, he was pulling his hair out over the one piece of gold. It didn't seem like that he had just this massive fortune with, you know, lots of gold. It was just one piece of gold. Um, they called it a treasure, but it's just a lump of gold. So, I mean, I guess, you know, no one knows for sure how much that lump of gold is worth, but you sort of get the feeling that he's kind of overreacting. Um, and there's definitely a little bit of a rebuke by the author here. He's saying, Aesop is saying, don't be a miser. Even if you've worked hard and you know, however you got, you know, your resources, don't be a miser. So, anyways, thank you very much.